The global war has now been raging in Europe for 3.5 long years. Both the Allies and Germany are exhausted, bogged down in the trenches of northern France.
Things are ugly in World War I. Europe was exhausted, many cities in rubble, starvation, disease were widespread. The Red Cross couldn't even keep up with what was going on. If you were the Allies in Europe, you needed the reinforcements, new energy, new blood.
To aid in the fight, the Allies recruit a new country to their side. Following their long-awaited entry into the war, America is ready to make its presence felt. 10,000 American troops begin arriving in France daily, ready to reinforce the Allies.
America transferred hundreds of thousands of soldiers to France. So the Germans felt the rising pressure. The Germans thought, we have beaten Russia in 1917. We now move the troops from the Eastern Front to the Western Front. And now we have to launch a last offensive. Now we have to make it. Now we have to win the war before the Americans can make a difference.
With all their forces now concentrated on the Western Front, Germany launches the Spring Offensive. A series of daring surprise attacks. Specialist German units infiltrate Allied trenches and attack command posts. The attacks are so successful, a German victory now looks within reach. But the Central Powers have overstretched their supply lines, and they don't have tanks to hold their ground. Aiming to push through to Paris, Germany attacks at Marne.
The Germans were all ready to conquer France, but there's always that little grain of sand in the machine. What the Germans didn't expect was Marne.
Here, the Allies, reinforced by American units, finally hold the German advance. The French counterattack, winning at Marne. 2 days later, the Allies attack at Amiens, winning again. Capitalizing on these gains, the first American-led attack is at Saint-Mihiel. The grand aim of all these attacks is to force the Central Powers out of France. America brings with it the very weapon the Germans lack. A battalion of lightweight French-made tanks under the command of Colonel George S. Patton.
Yes, sir. Patton is testing his new strategy. He's leading this new form of weaponry, the tank. So it's an important battle for him to prove that tanks are valuable on the battlefield and also to establish himself as an important military leader.
The night before the planned invasion, Patton can't sleep. He slips out of the trenches totally unprotected, deep into the heart of no man's land. It's the most dangerous place on Earth. But Patton needs intelligence. So he's scouting a route to ensure his machines won't get stuck in the mud.
I
think when you look at someone like George Patton, he used intelligence well, but I think the best thing he did was he turned intelligence into action very quickly. George Patton's tendency was for action. Because he was aggressive, for him it worked very, very well.
On the 12th of September 1918, 500,000 American troops, along with 4 divisions of the French army, sweep onto the battlefield of Saint-Mihiel. Among them is George Patton. The Germans put up fierce resistance. But the intelligence Patton has gathered is paying off. And his tank brigade begins to break down the German line. Among the soldiers at Saint-Mihiel is a 38-year-old brigadier general, Douglas MacArthur.
Soldier, be on the left flank, now!
Yes, sir. General, Charlie Company is advancing.
Take position on the ridge.
Yes, sir.
Keep moving, keep moving!
Lieutenant George S. Patton, 1st Tank Brigade.
Brigadier General Douglas MacArthur, 42nd Infantry.
General, sir, they need you at the front.
All right, boys, let's move up!
Patton and MacArthur. Here they are in Saint-Mihiel, and they meet on the battlefield for the first time. In the midst of artillery shells all around them, you have these 2 men who are going to play such an important role in shaping the future of the 20th century. And they have no idea what history has in store for them.
MacArthur is from a long line of military men. His father was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor in the American Civil War. No less is expected of his son.
Douglas MacArthur would lead attacks walking out into no man's land with a swagger. He was embodied with not only tremendous ability, but also tremendous self-confidence.
The 2 West Point graduates will be allies and rivals for decades. Together with the French army and 500,000 American troops, the Allies prevail and take Saint-Mihiel. 240 miles away, years of trench warfare have transformed Adolf Hitler. From a directionless loner into a hardened soldier. Hitler's ideology takes root on the front lines. He begins to believe in Germany's superiority. Certain he can withstand anything the Allies throw his way. The gas attacks are endless. To Hitler, they've almost become routine. But this time, it's different. Since tear gas was first used, the Allies have been matching the Germans step for step as they develop ever more deadly gases. The latest weapon which both sides now possess is mustard gas. It lingers in the trenches for days, and attacks both the respiratory system and the skin.
Mustard gas affects the central nervous system. It creates mustard-colored blisters on the skin. It blinds people. It strips away the mucous membranes. It's incredibly painful and debilitating. And since it had no odor, by the time you realized that you had inhaled it and it was on your skin, it was too late.
Hitler's days on the front lines are numbered. But for him, the war is just beginning. The Allied offensive forces the German army to relocate its prisoners of war. Deep inside Germany, to a massive prison camp outside Munich. Among the POWs serving time is a French commander who was captured while leading a breakout of his battalion's position in Verdun. Captain Charles de Gaulle.
It was recounted by de Gaulle himself. De Gaulle found himself surrounded, and he wanted to flee with his men. A grenade was thrown at him. He threw himself on the ground, then a German stabbed him in the leg with a bayonet. He passed out, and when he awoke, he was behind German lines.
As his time in prison drags on, de Gaulle's desire to return to the front lines in France increases, and he plots his escape.
The hospital is connected to the camp through a single door. If we can get through that door, we can be in the woods in 5 minutes. If we can get through that door, they guard it day and night.
De Gaulle was a patriot. He was a soldier, so it's the duty of every soldier and every officer to escape. You are useless when you're in captivity. So escaping is a duty.
After multiple failed escape attempts, de Gaulle is locked down in solitary confinement. Interrogated and repeatedly tortured, he remains loyal to France, refusing to give in to the Germans. Though he's far away from the fighting, de Gaulle is learning what it will take to become a great leader.
I spent nearly 3 years in solitary confinement, and by tapping on the wall was the way primarily that we had to communicate. You learn that together you can succeed in resisting the enemy. It also taught me the value, again, not only of freedom, but the value of serving a cause greater than your own self-interest.
In the Argonne forest, America and France are fighting side by side against the Germans. General MacArthur is searching for a way to break through the German defenses.
Every so often, someone crosses the constellation of military leaders a little bit like a shooting star. And Douglas MacArthur did that.
MacArthur learns of a surveillance photograph of German trenches along the Western Front that reveals an undetected gap in the German line.
Intelligence is essential, and the more you can get, the better. But at the end of the day, it's your instinct that works.
MacArthur is determined to break through the line and surround the Germans in their trenches. In the autumn of 1918,
Come on!
American and French forces launched the Battle of Argonne Forest.
Fire! Come on!
It is the largest commitment of American troops in World War I.
Move forward!
The French and British generals had a very mixed attitude to the coming of the Americans.
Come on!
On the one hand, they were thrilled to see more manpower. But, of course, the British and French knew much more about fighting this war than these new green Americans.
Large numbers of casualties mount on both sides. The hard-fought battle is part of a larger campaign along the entire Western Front. Designed to force a complete German retreat, it would later become known as the 100 Days Offensive.
Move! Incoming!
All of the Allied nations unite to form the largest fighting force the world has ever seen.
The 100 Days Offensive was a great feat of arms. They'd finally got the technology right. They'd learned to coordinate infantry, tanks, and artillery. The exhilaration, the excitement. Men who sprang out of their trench to attack, expecting to die, found that they lived.
Move! Come on! Let's go!
After months of fighting, the Allies finally break through, putting the German army on the run.
Watch it!
Finally, with no other option, tens of thousands of German soldiers lay down their guns and surrender.
If you have a great event to face, a great leader needs the intelligence to know what needs to be done. And they need the physical stamina and the mental stamina to actually carry it through, often against very great setbacks.
After 4 years of continuous fighting and 37 million casualties, the two sides agree to a ceasefire. Germany signs the armistice, an effective surrender aboard a French train carriage in northern France.
When the world is shaking and rearranging itself, as it does after great events like the end of a war, there are a whole range of different emotions. The first is exhilaration, a very personal feeling, exhilaration at being part of an event that is changing the world. And there's never much time to look back. There's always a lot to look forward to.
While the end of the war is greeted with celebrations almost everywhere, the unexpected surrender of Germany sends the country into chaos. Many refuse to accept defeat.
The German population was surprised. All of a sudden, they were told that it was over, that they had lost the war. I mean, it's unthinkable, it's incomprehensible. So people in Germany did not accept the defeat.
Germany went into a moment of like a suspended animation, and it was an enormous collapse. It was a complete collapse.
While most of the world welcomes the peace, some, deep in the heart of Germany, refuse to accept defeat.
Hitler was wounded in a gas attack at the very end of the war, and he was then hospitalized, temporarily blinded.
Our people will be losing war against the Western armies.
While he was in hospital, he was then told that Germany had lost the First World War. And that's a crucial turning point in Hitler's life.
In Hitler's worldview, it was always dead or alive. Win or total defeat. For him, surrender was something un-German. You are a coward somehow if you surrender.
Hitler took the surrender personally. A personal, destructive blow to himself. He also took it as a mission in life to avenge and rectify this surrender.